Welcome.
The Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community is a regulatory science initiative that aims to facilitate innovations in pathology, as well as advance safety and effectiveness evaluation. The PIcc Collaborative Community aims to harmonize approaches to speed delivery to patients through collaboration in the pre-competitive space. The PICC is open to all stakeholders, public or private, including but not limited to academia, industry, healthcare providers, patients, and advocacy groups. Meetings of this kind are an example of lawful activity under federal antitrust law because the focus of the meeting is on government action or policy, including the industry's responses or positions taken with respect thereto. However, antitrust monitoring is needed for companies' own protection, since they are direct competitors meeting together. These meetings need to stay within protected subject matters and need to be monitored so that they do not stray off into inappropriate areas, such as pricing and price terms, sales and service territories for particular products, customers and customer territories, each company's individual decisions regarding selection of suppliers or customers, marketing plans and especially future marketing plans or new product offerings, other proprietary or competitively sensitive information. Today's meeting will follow the written agenda, and there will be no discussion of pricing or other prohibited topics. If the discussion veers into those topics, we will terminate the discussion. If you have any questions or concerns about the propriety of a discussion, please raise it immediately, and we will take a break to determine how best to proceed. The Medical Device Innovation Consortium acts as the formal convener, and we will follow their conflict of interest policy. For additional information, we defer to our Code of Conduct and our website, www.pathologyinnovationcc.org. We look forward to moving the field forward.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We have a packed agenda with a lot of topics, so I will start sharing my screen. Can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
With the ribbon here on the side, because I think we may need to jump a bit up and down during the presentation. So, of course, this is a very heavy and busy area, and I want to get straight to some of the topics and then leave some ample time at the end for discussions. Uh-oh. Can I just ask everyone to mute yourself? Thank you very much. That helps a lot. Okay, we start as always with FDA updates. I think you're probably all well aware that the so-called final rule enforcement policy for IVDs has been released. And most recently, specifically on May 14th, the FDA hosted a webinar. You see here were the only 19 slides that are probably the most fundamental change in terms of content over the last 2 decades when it comes to, LDT regulation. I won't go into the details. I think we can discuss this for hours. And as you're all aware or have in part even been participating actively, has been many different webinars. And of those folks who have shared actual content, I wanted to give a big shout out to and share some of that. One of the great webinars that happened last week was by CAP, and they have provided a website. The link is in the PowerPoint. Those will all be available, of course, to you. And it is all linked and all combined, all publicly available. So that was a fantastic webinar by CAP, but I wanted to point out to 3 other resources, and I'm sure there are many others. Feel free to share those with us because we would like to be as broad and non-discriminatory as possible. So this is at least those people who have shared the links with PICC. One comes from Dr. Gordon. You see her team and her have put together a great overview over the different steps on what happens to companion diagnostics, what happens to LDTs, what about New York State. I think these are great slides for overviews in case, for example, you want to update your teams, etc. Another fantastic resource, which is on a separate website from Sidley, is a summary of 4 key strategic questions. You see that put out here, taken straight from the article. It's a interesting review that tackles some of these key points. The last resource here from Jane Pinewood, who summarized some of the components here. This was May 9th, so this was before the FDA webinar. But thanks for sharing all these resources. And there's a couple of more internal resources that we share in a moment. But of course, there's a few other updates from the FDA other than LDT, because that is only one key component. And there's 3 key resources. One is related to those of you. Noor, can you help mute the people, please? Because that is
Yeah,
at least
sure.
for me. Thanks a lot. So this is a finalization from August that was shared with us, in particular related to consent processes. As some of the rules happening, for example, during trial design, there are questions like, is it inducement if you pay for someone's parking? What is the, subject's availability? When do you have to do your protocol for consent? And does that have to go to the IRB first or to the FDA first? So this is a great resource related to this. A second release from the FDA that happened about 2 weeks ago is a so-called drug trial snapshots, and this is a summary report from 2023. I pulled one example to just illustrate to you that, for example, this drive for diversity, equity, and inclusion that is now basically written all over most, if not all, of the FDA's trials and drug approvals is manifesting here to illustrate truly what the rate of certain approvals and the respective groups that are participants is broken down here. So this is known as drug trial snapshots, and I'm not currently aware whether that's existing for devices, but it's certainly an interesting report to take a look at what the target rates or ratios are. The last update is this visual summary of what's called clinical decision support software. I think we shared this a while back. This is I think, great graph that asks some of the key questions when you need to decide whether your decision support software is a device or is no device. And of course, that seems like a simple question, but as we've learned, it is extremely challenging to identify, for example, what is a common healthcare professional communication or interaction, and whether or not it does have influence on, the treatment path. So that's the quick overview of, some of the elements from the FDA. And there's a couple of other updates from DC and or other federal groups. And I wanted to start with, there are some groups that pursuing or at least considering that this rule that's finalized and in effect now would be potentially harmful. And I'm sharing this because it is very interesting to see from a regulatory perspective what that would look like when, for example, that this should be resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives, and what would happen. And these are the actual documents. We share those for informational purposes with you. The second update comes from NIST, that is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So these are a large-scale, multi-year pieces of work, and this is a NIST standard of AI. And here it's a risk management framework. Typically, these documents consist of 2 parts. First, a definitional part. I just picked a quick thing, for example, what many call hallucinations or fabrications in the generative AI world is defined under NIST as confabulation, which is an interesting definition. And there's pages of these definitions, but then comes subsetted into different themes. For example, here's the part about governance, for example, legal and regulatory requirements. And within that, there are so-called action IDs, so that if something happens, for example, disclose the use of generative AI to end users. And that is a human configuration as a risk. So if the humans or the builders wouldn't do this, this would classify as an action ID by this number. So this list, I only took a very small snippet, makes up about 80% of this entire document. And I thought this is a very interesting approach to codify this so that when you assess the risk of a generative AI, you now have a blueprint. Of course, depends on how that will be used in clinical practice, but I thought for this group, this might be highly relevant. The third resource comes from the so-called Bipartisan Senate AI Working Group. And you see here are the official executive sponsors. The group is, of course, much larger, and the document that we're sharing in the chat contains the entire group. This group has been dedicated by the administration as a bipartisan group. The Senate has invited and selected several people to participate. And after an inaugural forum, this group met a total of 9 times to tackle and strategize around these topics. And these individual meetings were called forums. So there were 9 forums, and this is the final document that was released just earlier this month that summarizes the 9 key, let's call it vectors, how the bipartisan group think about how to, let's just call it, tackle the AI health hype. And you see, interestingly, there are things tackled, of course, that are way beyond health, but some guiding principle like, democracy, privacy, transparency, explainability, these are all phenomena that we use. So it is, in my opinion, at least a great resource. This was shared by at least 4 different people, so I hope that that's accounting for something to you. The final element here comes, shared from our friends in the radiology groups here, and that is a call to action. So an official letter, open letter from the American College of Radiology to the Congress of the United States, warning them that there is a lack of reimbursement that's hindering AI adoption. And this happened May 8th, so just after our last meeting. As you know, way back in the ancient days before the pandemic, we had the representative of the American College of Radiology, Bib Allen, join PIcc to immediately sort of understand what we're aiming for, and so that we're not running into the same issues as the American College of Radiology. So this is an important thing that in case someone is interested in reimbursement, payer strategies, or more governmental involvement in this is definitely a letter to read and to dig into. I switch over to probably the biggest project that we're currently doing, and it's also great to see some of the representatives from FNIH with us. Quickly, 2 things. Our regulatory landscape survey. Here's the barcode. If you haven't taken it, please take it. We will close this by June 1st. Then it was open for almost 3 months. And we have by now a lot of results. The preliminary results were shared last month. And after June 1st, we will do a final assessment. And then these results will go on the website and will be shared with the agency. And just one other thing which we also reported is that Brandon Gallis and our executive sponsor, Ed Magirison, were asked to present at the collaborative community group meeting, I guess. I don't know, Brandon, if that's the correct term, but where all the collaborative communities present on their progress. So we put together this 4-slide progress report. And I don't know, Brandon, if you want to say a few words, what happened during that meeting, or if there's any feedback or so. Hey, great seeing you.
Hello. Well, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
So,
got it. Yay.
but what I'm gonna do, and because they did a trial run of my 2.5 minutes that I speak to the leadership team, and so I'm basically gonna ignore everything into the last couple bullets because I really am hoping to maybe see if we can't have a meeting here on campus. You've asked me to kind of explore that opportunity, either next spring, most likely. But then also to try and let's see, uh, talk about the LDDT plans, or have a more back and forth discussion, or a chance to talk to some of those policy folks. And because I changed the last couple bullets there for 2024, and that was those two bullets are what I added. So I'm not real positive about how they'll react to those, but that's my job as liaison, to try and bring what conversations we want to have here to the leadership team and try and get some people that can answer everybody's questions.
Yeah, I think I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but I think within the collaborative community field, the LDT topic is probably the closest to this community. I think there are other communities affected by it, but if you can put a word in, I think most of the constituents of PICC, many of the professional societies, would probably be very happy to join, just like we did at the very initial conceptual meeting. So that would
Yep.
be fantastic. Thank you for
Yep.
speaking
And I
up.
think this group could organize a meeting that is kind of productive, let's say that, and get everybody to where we need to be.
And I think the other option is, of course, with the various vantage points. I think it would be a lot of practical, I don't know, insights, and it would probably be loaded with questions and controversy. So we have to plan that carefully and diplomatically. But I think if we frame it correctly, for example, maybe one day focused on more anatomic pathology, histology, digital pathology, and then one day more on other high complexity tools like including AI, etc., and other data types, that might be a way to streamline it a bit. But I like also to present it as not a question, but a request coming from the community, and then see how that evolves over the rest of the year and as things unfold.
Right.
Okay. A quick update on what is called the PICC FNIH project. Eventually, we come up with a much more catchy name, but quickly, these slides are available. I want to jump over a few. So it's a large group of people that got together, developed a drafting phase proposal consisting of three different things. And last month, I presented that we had a meeting on May 3rd, which happened, and we discussed the feedback that we got from the Cancer Steering Committee of the Foundation of NIH. The call happened, and you see there were a lot of the people that are on this call here, and we were on the one hand learning about the different Cancer Steering Committee steps. So from a working group, a concept, a plan, and then to the actual execution phase, that there are many, many different steps. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is here that new ideas under consideration entails, I don't know if that was intentional, but it's at least on the top, and it's not alphabetical, but it's digital pathology. So that is effectively on the new idea list. And what happened during the meeting is that we got input that was, I believe, very, very valuable. And Altia is on the call. Hello. I don't know if you want to say a few things about this project development pipeline, what that looks like for our steering committee here, but thank you for joining.
Happy to be here. Sure, happy to comment quickly. So
Mhm.
thank you very much for putting together that pre-proposal. So we shared this with our Cancer Steering Committee co-chairs. We have at a high level 2 rounds of review, a concept level where things are kind of trying to get an idea of whether there's a there, getting an idea for the general direction of a project, and then a plan level where everything comes together in really granular detail. And we build out a really robust experimental plan and all of that before we move forward with getting the contracting and fundraising together for launch. So where this stands within our pipeline is this is an area that our Cancer Steering Committee members, we've got about 80 members representing large pharma, industry, government, a number of agencies as well, have identified digital pathology as an area of strategic interest. And so there is, desire to bring something together in this space. So the team, as Joe was mentioning, met with the co-chairs and some of our stakeholders who expressed interest. And I think I had a really great discussion about how to shape the project, and it's really coming together nicely, and I won't steal Joe's thunder on that. But the next step would be when you're ready, and let us know how we can support that, to go before the Cancer Steering Committee for a review of the concept. So we can get a feel for, where there's alignment with our industry members, where we could find fundraising for that. And we would support a funding scan to help with that before we go to our executive committee, which has representation from senior leadership at NCI, FDA, and industry, as well as our board, before we would go through with plan development and route to launch. So to Joe's point, a number of steps, but I do want to note that the co-chairs commended the team that you've put together. We're impressed with that, and I hope that was a constructive call, and I'll pause.
Oh, thank you. I thought it was a very, very constructive call, and I, wanted to show you some of the things and the next steps. So first, we received the feedback. Again, keep in mind this whole project emerged from our last annual meeting, where we had a vote and narrowed it down to real-world data collection effort that would ultimately lead to a data set as a tool that is regulatory grade. Now, the question that was sort of is it the one way or the other is, should we make it broad? Should we make it, all kinds of settings, all kinds of cancers with all kinds of questions? Or should it be a very narrow focused one cancer type with one biomarker to showcase a very specific value add and potentially outcome data? And that question was clearly answered for the latter, meaning something very specific, highly applicable, and very concise. I think for various reasons, we won't go into details. A website update is planned where all the entire FNIH meeting materials, etc., will be on there. I wanted to show the so-called data collection regime that we came up with. And that is, even if we pick a fairly concise set, let's call it, of collectible eligibility criteria, and then a subset of patients will go on drug, and of those patients that go on drug, only a subset will be with fulfilling all the eligibility criteria, will be on drug, and will have relevant outcome data. And if you think about these as populations, the question is, of course, is this highly informative cohort representative of the disease under consideration? So these statistical, let's call it, considerations are extremely critical for the value of the ultimate data set. And one person who is, one of the few people that's planning prospective trials in the field of pathology and diagnostics, in the field of biomarkers in breast cancer, and specifically regarding morphological biomarker, tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes, is Roberto Salgado. And I had a chance to meet with him on May 26th with a few people to discuss this. And if I outline quickly what will happen next, so this might also be of high interest to you, Althea, is so we have incorporated the feedback, and we're currently finalizing to select the specific setting, and then of course develop and or modify our data collection regime. And then we discussed in this meeting here on May 3rd that we would put together with the PIcc FNIH team, which is actually composed of about 15 different representatives, to review this slide deck and send it to you. Then you can share it with the Cancer Steering Committee for review, and then we plan next steps. So thanks for being here, and I hope that those, let's say, 8 steps match what you were thinking. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone here, of course, in PIcc is invited to join and to contribute and to work on this. But maybe quickly, is that correct as outlined here, and then also let's open it up for additional comments. I see Matt is on here. I know Carl Barrett is on here, who is part of it. I see a few folks from Friends, Cap. So many of you already have contributed. But if there's comments, maybe we can briefly discuss.
I'll just note, this looks great to me from our FNIH end. And we have, I think the timeline might work well for our July 31st meeting. If you would like, if you think that you can be ready by that time, you know, it's based off of your availability, things can always shift. But we would just need it 2 weeks before that so that we could make sure that everything is cleaned up and in place and have time for reviews and give the CSC time to review in preparation for the actual presentation. That looks good to me.
And that is the Cancer Steering Committee meeting, correct? So
Yes.
that would be the FNIH Cancer Steering Committee meeting, and you would need it 2 weeks prior, so we're talking July 13th or something. I will fix this
Yeah.
later so that it looks pretty, but I think that is a reasonable and doable timeline so that we can also obtain feedback from everyone. That's great. Other comments, questions, suggestions? Of course, inside the community of the different partners, we have to, of course, decide whether the specific setting makes sense to everyone, and then also discuss who might be the right people to start considering to join, you know, for the phase 2, where we would actually do the collection to understand what is being asked, because, you know, the data collection protocol development would definitely need to be done jointly with all the participants. So, yep. There are no other questions, then maybe we can move on quickly. This is a new subset in this in our presentations. I know we spoke about this quite a bit, and some of the prior topics, for example, the generative AI, etc., always raise some of these questions, but there's an astounding amount of links and papers, also publications, we get to them in a second, that tackle cybersecurity. One of the things that a lot of these papers, etc., reference, and I had to pull it, and therefore I wanted to share it with this community, is the official categorization of control selection for national security systems, so CNSSI, an older document, but it is really, in other words, the minimum standards related to certain security systems. And then one thing from another colleague who participates from the University of Vermont, as you may or may not remember, there was a cyber attack in the entire healthcare system of the University of Vermont. And they have done a very succinct and deep root cause analysis and developed sort of a security program, etc. So we share this presentation and the details with you as well. And then one other update is coming from the Chief Information Officer. So this is Department of Defense, to ensure that the different defense industrial base is called a certain level of standard regarding cybersecurity. And there is a program that stands for Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. So it's called CMMC. That is an official certificate related to cybersecurity. So in other words, as AI and generative AI is evolving, and many people and subgroups, as you just saw, for example, from the AI workforce, from our bipartisan Senate committee, are emphasizing that security, privacy, transparency is all very important. These are modern trends, and these elements and certificates will hopefully, or will very likely soon, be key components. To transition over, and I know cybersecurity is of tremendous interest to MDIC, maybe I can hand it over to Noor for the next few slides.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Joe. And one of the biggest things that MDIC has been working on is the MDIC Commercial Payer Council, which is part of the HEPV section of MDRC. And this is a really big endeavor that MDRC has been working on, and we're very excited to be launching it. And I've pasted all of the links already into the chat if you would like to read up more about it, or if you're interested in connecting with MDRC regarding HEPV as a whole or the MDRC Commercial Payer Council, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can connect you with Harry, who is the VP of HEPV. Next slide, please. Unless Joe, you wanted to add anything on regarding.
Yeah, so one element here is number one, fantastic work. Of course, MDIC has, a big say in this landscape of devices. And it's, of course, a strategic thing to ensure sustainability, in particular financial sustainability. So having a leader or a galleon figure like MDIC help with this is, I think, extremely important. I know that digital pathology has some issues. We have another topic presented in just a few moments related to this, but if you're in town and or interested, I think there are some conferences coming up. There's, a lot of activities. So definitely take a look at the Commercial Payer Council from MDIC. And if there's other interests, I think, like Noor said, please email her. But thank you for doing that, Noor.
Of course. And then this is something very near and dear to my heart, because this was something I've been working on with the rest of the MDRC cybersecurity team on for a very long time. And this is the second annual medical device cybersecurity maturity benchmarking report. Just like Joe was mentioning earlier, cybersecurity is a huge part of anything related to healthcare. And this report is a benchmarking report for the entire medical device ecosystem. And hopefully this report and the future reports that we release helps the medical device industry strengthen their cybersecurity posture to help protect patient lives down the line. And it is a very interesting read if you'd like to read up on the report in general and how we can utilize different things, just like, for example, the JSP version 2 to improve patient safety and patient care.
Thank you.
And then the MDIC Excellence and Quality Summit is going to be occurring in Boston, July 23rd and 24th of this year. And there are multiple different tracks. There's going to be a cybersecurity track. HEPV, I believe, is involved as well. There's also AMCH is part of it as well. So it's very different tracks within one summit. If you'd like to learn more, the link is also pasted into the chat. And the last event that MDRC is holding is going to be MDRC's annual public forum, which is an overview of all of MDRC and our project. That'll be occurring September 10th and 11th in Washington, D.C. in the Hotel Washington, which is a very beautiful hotel. And we hope to see many people there. You're more than welcome to register for either event if you'd like to join us. You don't have to be an MDRC member, but it'll be a great opportunity to connect with people across MDRC's industry and just working groups as well. So it'll be a really great opportunity to meet people face to face again as we resume back to being in person. And that's it for us, Joe. Thank you.
Of course. Definitely a busy time also for MDIC. There's one contribution from Beyond, so this is not applicable to Europe, but just at the beginning of May, the Australian government has finalized the regulatory requirements for in-house IVDs. That's the term for LDTs. That is actually version 3.0, and it's a very interesting and comprehensive document. So, Noor, I think you can share the link. It is probably interesting not only for companies acting internationally, but also to see what other territories are thinking about this issue. And it is quite impressive how similar the, let's call it vectors are that drive to the intent and the aim of these regulations. I will hand it over to our friends from the panel of National Pathology Leaders, PNPL. And I think we have, of course, Robert Tessier and Heather Gaburo here. I don't know who, I see Heather came on screen. I don't know who I'm handing this over to, but one of you is probably presenting.
Thanks,
And if
Dr. Leonard.
that's okay, I can run the slides, right?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys today. So my name is Heather Gabora. I'm a pathologist assistant, and I'm also the technical director for the panel of National Pathology Leaders. Next slide, please. Our group was recently introduced to Mariano de Socorres of CorePlus in Puerto Rico this April at the Executive War College, and we were really impressed by his perspective on ROI, return on innovation. And we tend to analyze return on investment over a span of 5 years, whereas return on innovation usually materializes in 2. And this applies to PMPL. Next slide. Our innovation is at the heart of PMPL. We're a nonprofit think tank dedicated to advancing innovation in pathology and lab medicine. It was co-founded by Robert Tessier and Rick Cooper, and we focus on practical solutions and value-based strategies, currently representing nearly 400 pathologists. So we actively manage 3 focus groups: digital pathology and AI, diagnostic medicine, and corporate social responsibility. These groups consist of national experts and member representatives and are research-based and deliverables-driven. Additionally, we have 4 networking teams: compliance, practice leaders, CFOs, and pathologist assistants, with another starting later this year. So these groups are member-focused and involve quarterly presentations on timely topics. Our members' reference library has grown to over 600 documents across 40 topics, and we conduct research projects, develop reports, release micro highlights, and host webinars. Next, please. So the PMPL Digital Pathology and AI Focus Group consists of 12 panelists from both academic and private practices. This group fills the gaps left by some of the other organizations by addressing the business side of digital pathology instead of the technology implementation or workflow. The objectives include helping pathology practices understand the value of digital transformation through a practical framework for financial and logistical planning, and providing templates to support adoption. So over the past 2 years, we've conducted virtual site visits with academic and private groups at various stages of digital pathology implementation. Their insights are anonymously included in the PMPL toolkit, Making the Business Case for Digital Pathology, which is the focus group's current project. So this toolkit, it's a living, breathing document scheduled to be released later this year, and we intend to provide annual updates after the release. And this will include insights from 6 to 8 new virtual site visits and progress updates from previous sites. Next, please. Some of the highlights of the toolkit include an introduction geared towards a non-technical audience, lists of use case options, C-suite justifications, barriers to adoption, and links to resources like related academic papers and the Digital Pathology Association's ROI calculator. A sample SWOT analysis, and generic documents like budgets, RFP templates, and job descriptions for staff. Next. And here's just an excerpt of our toolkit table of contents featuring the use cases and the C-suite rationale. So if you're interested, I'd be more than happy to share the full table of contents. You can find my email on the opening slide. Next, please. And new research by PMPL on the digital pathology CPT codes has revealed some interesting findings. We recently prepared this chart on the cost and proposed technical pricing for the new Category 3 codes. PMPL research indicates an average cost of $2.50 per slide. These cost calculations were done with multiple groups and based on estimated or actual costs for the labor and scanning components listed. There are, however, some institutional variations. We recently spoke with a large academic institution, and they're in a non-mature digital pathology situation, and they expressed a cost of $271 per slide, but do expect the cost to decrease as their project matures over time. Another institution indicated that their cost of digital pathology was calculated as a percentage of their overall surgical pathology costs, and we're working on quantifying that more specifically in terms of cost per slide. The next step is to determine the average number of slides per CPT code to get an appropriate rate. We applied a multiplier of 4 for a proposed technical fee for each new code. Listed on the chart are the top 4 surgical pathology CPT codes that account for approximately 70% of total Medicare payments. This is using data from the 2021 Medicare payments for professional services. On the far right, you can see the national Medicare high and low for each code taken from our fee transparency project. There's a significant swing of 168% from the high and low fees. The biggest consideration is going to be whether that swing will be the same for the new digital pathology codes. Because those significant differences in reimbursement will adversely affect practices in geographic regions on the lower end of the spectrum, like Arkansas or Mississippi, and may benefit practices in higher reimbursement areas like California and Alaska. We also understand that vendors likely won't charge significantly different prices for equipment, regardless of whether the region has high or low reimbursement. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was a very concise and I don't know, dimension spanning summary of your very complicated work, but it's very, very meaningful. A quick pointer, of course, I don't think he could make it today, but Mariano has been part and is part of PIcc, so I'm sure he will be happy to see that he's featured here. And I can also happily report that in collaboration with PNPL, as soon as PNPL is ready, we can probably host a webinar here. I don't know if we should call it PNPL or whether we find another catchy name that people understand that this is about, you know, the very heart of getting reimbursed for digital path. And, you know, I know Matthew Hanna published the paper. I will show it in a second about the toolkit. But for now, let's table that until you're ready and until we find a good date. But I think if we can do that in the fall, that would be fantastic. Let's open it up for questions to Bob and Heather. Sorry, Heather, you were saying something.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Questions from the group? They're very quiet today. What's going on? Okay.
Maybe just a question about the cost projections. Wondering how the cost of different levels of storage impacts that figure and how the archiving costs will be accounted for with these codes.
Yeah, each group that we spoke with had different models for their storage, so those were incorporated in the calculations that we did, but there wasn't a consistent stratification of the cost.
Yeah, thank you. It's great. Thank you.
It's a very good question because, you know, cloud versus on-prem versus, you know, having to store slides currently under current regulatory paradigms, you still have to keep the glass. So it's different. It's double storage effectively, but okay, we move on. Of course, there are a lot of meetings coming up. I point to a few here, for example, one in Vilnius, the European Congress on Digital Pathology, and a few others later. Of course, one that's coming up in Orlando, and I'll show you in a second what we are currently submitting as a proposal from PIcc is with our friends from the Digital Pathology Association. A quick pointer, they have also done a very informative webinar on the LDT topic, have put together this very illustrative timeline here. Of course, this is all subject to modifications depending on future guidance. And as a quick pointer, last time we discussed and then subsequently decided that we will submit an oral presentation to the DPA Visions meeting. This is still an outline. Many of the people who mentioned that they may want to contribute have provided input, so we're modifying this. And again, a quick shout out to people representing the various industries. If you're interested, please shoot Noor or myself an email or put a message in the chat, and we will include you on the email that will be done to finalize the plan so that we hopefully can present the DPA meeting. Earlier this month was a meeting at the National Institute of Health focused on new frontiers in liquid biopsies. Although folks have informed us, we haven't heard like a summary. I only heard from one person that it was super dense and packed with a lot of facts, but we don't have any formal pictures or things to show. I'm not sure whether this has been released in terms of like the presentations, etc. So we will follow up on that. The next topic is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a quick pointer to a very high-ranking cancer cell paper commentary. You see from multiple institutions focusing on career trajectories of MD, PhD physician scientists, and here's a statistics over the different award programs that the NIH has, and whether there is a trend in this case on this modified forest plot towards fewer awards in females, which shows that there's a certain range. You see the statistics below. Definitely interesting, especially when it comes to career planning, etc. So we thought we share it. We jump to resources. The first on the topic of AI and health from OECD is providing a very interesting, alignment between the intended or desired outcome and then how to address this and what principles that OECD put together is aligned with. And then something fairly similar, but more focused on augmented intelligence, something that we haven't presented here, which came out in November, which came from the AMA to illustrate how tools and systems can continue to grow when using so-called augmented intelligence. So decision support, deployment of certain decision support tools. Two other resources that I want to share is number one, a quick summary by Hannah Murphy on truly practical tips for imaging departments, how to reduce energy consumption. So this is not only CO2 footprint, but also just in general energy consumption. I know certain states even have emerging mandates regarding being green. And one theme on this presented earlier this year and shared by the author Moira Larson with some of our members is how to green the lab. And I quickly enlarged this here. You see there's definitions, environmental waste management, reduce fuel consumption, water use, etc. So this is something as we merge into the dry lab world regarding AI. There's at the same time a certain pressure regarding reduction of CO2 footprint and ensuring that the laboratory is environmentally cognizant. A quick pointer to a resource from the National Academies of Health. This is a resource that was created after a seminar that happened last year, and this is an entire book freely available called Incorporating Integrated Diagnostics into Precision Oncology. And this is these are the proceedings of a workshop that was jointly organized by Kojo, Eleni Toba-Johnson from Memorial Sloan, and Hedvig Hirschak, also from MSK. Interestingly, a pathologist and a radiologist who came together with that was the planning committee, and you see there are a lot of other members. There's a lot of project staff, and then of course the National Policy or the National Cancer Policy Forum, and that's I think a total of 3 pages of people who agreed that there might be an avenue for the national academies to look into what would happen if lab medicine, pathology, radiology, and the clinical data would merge into what's called integrated diagnostics. I disclose I'm fully biased because I was one of the reviewers of this entire book, and it is a very, very comprehensive take by multiple experts on the topic of integrating across diagnostic disciplines. So if you're interested in that topic, I can definitely recommend the book, and there's definitely no kickback because it's free. Another resource that I want to share is from these 3 authors. They put this together. It is probably the most concise summary of what the AI automation field right now looks like. And of course, since this is a few days old, it's already outdated. We're in the middle of a phenomenal hype. The categorization and illustrations in this piece is superb. This is just sort of a market overview in terms of symbols, but please take a look at the conceptual diagrams in this post, and they shared it. I think it's really big props to them for putting it together that clearly. Okay, there's no way I can say something meaningful about the work that is so incredible that was shared this month. So I will only make it the high level and very quick summaries. Paulo Tarantino, Giuseppe Curigliano, and Sarah Tolaney, in part from Dana-Farber Cancer Center, show here how HER2-low emerged over time from clear definitions and distinctions to more of a continuous look at the topic right now. If you're into HER2-low quantification or image diagnostics, this is the clinical part. This paper here from Dr. DeRas from the group around Deborah Eskenazi and Stephen Gilbert is outlining how drug and cell therapies in the current landscape of complementary and companion diagnostics plus AI will probably in the future look like, where these different treatment modalities have to be taken together to render a clinically meaningful decision support. There is a so-called microsatellite instability predictor that is a joint effort. I see Matt is on the call, so congrats, Matt. I know this was a collaboration between PathNet, Tempus, and many different people that put together this incredible paper. So big props and congrats. Won't go into the details because there's a lot of different things. But if you haven't seen it, this is NPJ Precision Oncology, and it came out, so congrats. Another group around Ali Bashashadi, who also started working on multiple ovarian cancer consortia, have just released this paper, I think at the end of April, 2,438 images distributed across 3 different data sets. You see the breakdown here. Which is probably one of the largest ovarian carcinoma grant challenges. Definitely pre-publication to look out for. I'm not sure if it has been published yet, but I should check. This is the paper that Heather has mentioned, or I should say the tool that she has mentioned. So Matthew Hanna is the last author, and Orly Arden put together this, understanding the financial aspects of digital pathology. And in the end, there's a return on investment. Mariano would call this innovation calculation, that puts it together to get to an estimated ROI. So definitely also a great paper. And I would suggest that once the tool from PNBL is ready, maybe we can get, some of our members here to maybe join and explain this paper in conjunction with the toolkit from PNPL. Quickly, one paper here. This is coming from Friends of Cancer Research, who are, of course, our designated patient advocacy group. And you see many of the names here. So Brittany, I don't know if you're still on, so congrats on your paper. I know that this was a very complicated and challenging project, but you see some of the results here about, the baseline, for example, variant allele frequency over early stage and late stage non-small cell lung cancer in the different settings and or assays. So one of many publications here, but I just wanted to quickly point this out. This is I got this paper from 2 people related to real world data, which is of course a very important and big topic. And this is interesting at the national scale. They broke down what are the actual reasons for real world data sources overall. And if you look at it, there's a whooping 6% for administrative purposes, then 19% quality assurance, and epidemiological tracking, a quarter, and clinical only 15%. I would have totally estimated this differently, especially with more of the sort of research realm. I would have definitely thought that that's larger. So important insights into where the data lives and what is being done with it. A quick pointer to real-world data in pharmaceutical research. Won't go into details. 4 amazing authors got together to provide a guide of AI for cancer researchers, which is same, but fundamentally different for the use of a generalist AI in cancer care, which is depicted as sort of a 3-step process here. 2 papers in the New England Journal of Medicine Catalyst. One is how to actually assess whether a healthcare intervention and what you measure is really helping to improve patient outcomes. A very complex process, of course, and that's apparently emerging as a science. And here's another paper on the so-called value agenda for healthcare leaders. I quickly want to point out to the paper of this amazing group here, led by Michael Goldberg, depicting a flow cytometry-based AI-coupled predictor of tumor monitoring in the peripheral blood using the immune system. So a big high five to that team. And a few additional papers. AI and digital pathology. This is, to my knowledge, the first and only systematic review and meta-analysis of diagnostic test accuracy across, I forgot how many, over 100 studies. And you see here, this is the false positive rate against the sensitivity of the respective diagnostic test intent. And you see we're focusing here on low number of false positives with a very high sensitivity. So not entirely surprising, but showing this in that way is probably reassuring when you know that, most tests and, digital pathology experiences are that it is similar. There were a few papers, I selected this one representative, about rolling out digital pathology across different regions. This is the beautiful Italian region of Veneto, which is the countryside around Venice. Here's the geographic depiction of, so this is just north of Bologna, and it is beautiful there. And you see here is a rollout of the digital pathology structure and deployment across multiple hospital and healthcare centers in that region. Matching to the ASCO meeting, which is starting, I think, on Friday this week till next week, is the new ASCO guideline on which cancer types and which germline testing should be done and be performed in that realm. A paper in the Mayo Clinic Proceedings about how to impact a large number of affected individuals across the different phases of rollout. Another paper from the group around Faisal Mahmood about 3D pathology. And aside from showing beautiful 3D renderings and pictures, you see there's definitely some added value in selected settings when you use the whole volume of 3D, implying that you can probably overcome some of the quality impairments of sectioning, etc. This paper here, I just wanted to quickly point out, is a negative finding that specifically that large language models can't easily replace medical coders. And that is fairly surprising because that's fairly discrete information, but extracting the information that's right from a medical record can't be easily replaced. So definitely a work of interest. And then a few more papers on large language models regarding trustworthiness of drug labeling documents. Definitely regulatory implications. A paper in PNAS regarding acting and showing scientific integrity in the age of generative AI. And then 3 fantastic paper, one single-cell spatial transcriptomics in Nature Communications, a Nature paper that defines, a gigantic prof giga path, a so-called foundation model by the group around Dr. Poon. Definitely groundbreaking work that I think was published just a few days ago. In Nature Medicine, a prediction model from Victor Holzer and Charling Bossi. You see here's the initial and here's the external validation data set of predicting recurrence risk of endometrial cancer. And this is, again, just came out. This is a response prediction, in this case, also from the group of Victor Holzer, regarding subtyping of rectal cancer biopsies. And then just a few final, one is the use of intelligence chatbots in interpreting path reports. The group fed path reports and asked specific questions. For example, here you see the heat maps regarding the chatbot versus a human reviewer in terms of identifying whether something is benign, precancerous, or cancerous, or malignant or benign. And the outcomes where that chatbots have the potential to explain pathology reports. However, some of these, confabulations and hallucinations are still happening. So definitely some additional work needed. One NGS resource published by CAP about what you should do when you share files. And then the last paper, which is definitely an interesting way to look at it, whether the context of a certain finding in annotated images works and whether the context matters. So we have one maybe minute left. I quickly point towards our next meeting on June 26th. And of course, need to open it quickly for questions before everyone has to leave to the next meeting. Any comments, wishes? A lot of stuff, I know.
Can't hear you, Matt. You- I need to read lips better.
Yeah. Next time. We reserve some spot for Matt. Okay, let's end it here. Thanks everyone for joining. Hope to see you in June, and good luck, and don't work too hard. Bye-bye.